broke 20, so.
Good morning, Vicky.
James, are you doing the smooth jazz for us today?
I am.
Outstanding.
Yes. Yeah, I kind of just revert to the jazz. Yeah, but good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to your Monday. It's hard to believe it's already Monday. Monday, week went by fast, but really a really good week, good discussion today. We thank you, everyone, for coming and joining us. We're very excited to be here with you. We've got some great presentation and updates and news. If everyone can just go up to your 3 ellipses on your box and just rename yourself with your name, your organization, and your pronouns. In addition, if you want to go ahead and do that in the chat box, that's always helpful. We do save the notes, we do save the chats, so any comments that you do put in the chats, we will try to review them and get to them. So please do make your introductions as well. And we'll get started shortly.
Consuelo, welcome. So excited that you are starting with us. Welcome to the HILT world.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, do you mind sharing those instructions again of how to change your?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. If you just hover over your box, you'll see that there's a mute and 3 ellipsis dots.
Okay.
If you click on those ellipses, it should have a option to rename yourself. You rename yourself, and then you can put your name, your organization, and your preferred pronouns.
I just learned a lot today.
Well, see, yeah. Thanks for joining.
Lunch and learn success already.
Exactly. And then if you want, you can also do like virtual backgrounds. You could take a picture and upload a background of your preference. I mean, there's a lot of useful things within Zoom.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Sure, yeah.
All right.
Thanks for joining.
You can also make yourself look like a cat.
Oh, jeez. Great to see Nicole from Virginia Mason here. Awesome, awesome. And hey, Matt, how are you? Hope you had a good weekend. Oh, and we just crossed 30. How is that for a Monday at noon? We're this is the place to be. Good deal. So with that, I think we will go ahead and get started. And because I think I see Melvin, I see Shauna, and I see Anna who are on tap today. So thanks everybody for joining. As James is welcoming you into the room, hopefully again, as we go through the presentation today, please, share thoughts or questions or contact info in the chat. That's often where some of our best networking goes. But we are thrilled today to have both Seattle Children's along with our Seattle College partners to talk about their Health IT Micropathway. At SJI, I was thrilled to have the opportunity to work with Seattle colleges as they were building out some of these pathways, and the Health IT is one of the ones that we're most excited about. We work closely with the colleges and our friends at the Training Fund, as well as our employer partners, to give on-ramps onto healthcare careers. And there's some folks that just those clinical settings are not the best place for them. But yet the idea of being able to support our healthcare infrastructure through information technology and engage with technology is a really exciting career opportunity. And if you've been to any of our employer partners to get services lately, you know that IT and information infrastructure is embedded completely throughout the patient experience, making things go much more seamlessly, and also providing that great feedback after your visits as well. So knowing that this is an emerging area, we're excited that the colleges and Seattle Children's are able to collaborate. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shauna Rufkin, and she is our one of our HILT captains from Seattle Children's. She is also joined by Anna Baldwin from the Workforce Office at Seattle Colleges, and Melvin Smith, also from Seattle Colleges. So Shauna, I'm going to turn the baton over to you, and hopefully you can just walk us through your presentation today.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. And thanks for making time for this today. Yeah, I am just going to sort of cue things up and hand things over to Anna and Melvin, who are going to really get into the meat of the presentation today. But I just wanted to, by way of context, some of you may recall that in some previous HILT meetings, we've had both Scott Bingham and Melvin Smith from our IT team share some of the work that's been happening over the last several years at Seattle Children's in building out IT pathways. And in the early days of HILT, I know Scott had shared some updates about the internship program we had been working on at that time. And in the context of that work, we've been collaborating with the Seattle colleges to understand and align on the education pathways that are critically important to the actual progression and movement across different occupations in a health IT. And this new partnership recently emerged with a national grant project that Seattle Colleges is partnering in. And so we wanted to give you a little bit of context about that project, that specific grant project, and what the objectives are, what that's trying to do, and the specific work around this new IT micro credential. And then Melvin Smith from our team at Seattle Children's is going to share just a little bit about where we see that fitting in to the pathways that we're developing at Seattle Children's, kind of where this comes from for us, and how it's aligned with some of the goals that we have around talent pipeline and workforce diversity. And then we'll have time at the end. We're going to reserve some time to talk about just opportunities for people to plug in if that's something that feels like a fit, and answer any questions. So that's kind of our plan today. And with that, I will turn it over to Anna to provide a little bit of context on this national initiative around IT, or around micro-credentials generally, and the areas in which we're working here in Seattle. So Anna, I'll pass it over to you, and feel free to just nudge me if I'm not advancing the slides at the right pace.
All right, will do. Thanks, Shauna. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us here today. Pleasure to be here with you all to tell you a little bit about the Micropathways work that we're doing at Seattle Colleges and the specific Health IT Micropathway that we've been partnering on with Seattle Children's. So, as Shauna mentioned, Seattle Colleges are part of a national project to build a series of these micropathways. And that partnership, we're one of 6 colleges across the country participating, and the project is called the Community College Growth Engine Fund. But the essential idea of the project is to catalyze on a national scale more program and training development around discrete pathways that are short and get students to a job quickly, as well as building into longer training pathways. So these micropathways must be 1 year or less to complete. They have to have 2 or more credentials embedded within them. So not only are you getting kind of that credential from Seattle Colleges within that 1 year, but you might be getting 2 to, in one of our pathways, students get 7 credentials in one. And then, as I mentioned, the other, oh, sorry, Jason, I thought you had a question, but maybe just an unmute. So the pathway has to lead straight to a living wage in-demand job with that 1 year or less of training. And it also has to lead to continued education. So each of the micropathways that we're developing lead into an associate's degree and an applied bachelor's degree. So why are we doing this micropathways work? Why do we think it's important? First and foremost, students are demanding it and employers are demanding it. So what we're hearing from folks and what the data shows is that these shorter, more direct to employment, discrete pathways are what students are seeking, and training that fits into their busy lives, right? And then employers, data shows that employers are kind of increasingly losing trust in degree-centric models and gaining trust in these new kind of micropathway models. Another big why, of course, is the earthquake that our economy went through this year and is continuing to go through. And even though a lot of the dislocation that happened because of the pandemic is starting to right itself, we still have a lot of folks in, low income positions, or maybe they're just not where they want to be for a career. So the hope is to meet the needs of those students as well. And then, of course, both the healthcare industry and the IT industry have been saying for years that they want a more diverse workforce, and I know have been working towards that in various ways. So we see that as another function of this pathway. So that's a little bit about the high level what and why. And we at Seattle Colleges, we're building 5 micropathways as part of this project. And I'm happy to tell you what the other 4 are. But the one we're here to talk about today, of course, is Health IT. So a few specifics about this program. It will take students 9 months to complete, and that's full-time attendance. That's 3/4 in college speak. And I mentioned those embedded credentials within the certificate. So we'll have A+ certification embedded for those students. And then we'll also have a customer service badge as kind of a soft skill, 21st century skill, because we know that, health IT, it's kind of an interesting mix of skills, right? You have to have the strong technical skills, but you're also working in settings with sick people and vulnerable people going through hard times and things like that. So having those impeccable customer service skills are even more important in the health IT world. We're also giving students some exposure to the EPIC electronic health record system, since that is the most widely used EHR, not just in our region, but nationally. We think that's a great transferable skill. And then we wanted to be sure to include some work-based learning into the program, so students are getting that hands-on experience, something to put on their resume if they're new to the labor market. So we have I believe it's a 2 to 3 credit internship experience embedded within the pathway as well. So as I mentioned, a requirement of this micropathways model is that it has to lead to a job and to continued education. So part of what we're marketing to students is do this 1 year of training. It'll get your foot in the door to this great career in health IT, or carry on in one of our associate's or bachelor's programs. And there's even talk of developing a health IT associates and bachelor's, or do both at once. So the latter part of the pathway is intended to be worker friendly, flexible, so that students can work and continue their education at the same time. So we're looking at two, oh, that's great, Leslie. Yeah, we should definitely collaborate. So we're looking at two primary audiences. We're not excluding anyone. We would love high enrollment in this program, but when we're focusing our marketing and outreach efforts, we're looking at incumbent healthcare workers who would like to go into this field, the health IT field. And what we mean by that is, anyone who maybe they have been on the clinical side and they want to make a switch, like Ryan mentioned, or maybe they're part of the janitorial staff or the food service staff in your hospitals or healthcare settings, and they want to kind of go into this health IT pathway. So part of that audience is we're going to ask for you all, if you're interested, to identify some potential students who might be interested in this pathway and that you might want to refer to the program. And what else was I going to say about that? Dislocated or low income workers. These are folks, who've been laid off due to the pandemic or other reasons. Or maybe they're just, in a retail job or a food service job and looking to change directions. So we're kind of approaching the first bullet primarily in collaboration with employer partners like you all. And then the second bullet, we're working some other angles like social media and the work source offices and things like that. A quick word about timeline. We are gearing up to launch the first program, the first cohort, excuse me, in fall, this fall, which is rapidly approaching. And then we are hoping that we have strong enough enrollment to launch a winter quarter cohort and a spring cohort as well. So any help you all can give us sending us students, we would love that. And then the final slide here is just a snapshot of the coursework in the program. So, a mix of kind of IT fundamental skills that those intercultural communication courses that'll lead to the customer service credential, and then EHR essentials, which is our focus on EPIC, as well as essential skills in healthcare. So that is a quick and dirty overview from me. And I will hand it over to Melvin to talk about the Seattle Children's side of things.
All right, thank you for that, Anna. And good afternoon to everyone. It is, I believe, to be an honor to be able to come here again and speak about the healthcare IT pathway, especially in this partnership we have with Seattle colleges. And so it's just to provide a little bit of background. One of the things that I would like to give in context around how Seattle Children's is looking at this is through our healthcare IT career pathways. And so with that, we have our overall mission of enabling Seattle Children's to be the IT, to be that world-class educational sponsor and empowering that next generation of IT professionals. For that, that is one of the things that truly aligns with not only our core mission at Seattle Children's, but then also the service we try to provide within IT. And so with that mission, I kind of want to reflect a little bit on the values or ideals that we have within the program, because what's really interesting is they seem to have that reflective and current state actionable component to them. So for example, one of the things that we reflected on in thinking about Seattle Children's having that history of being an academic center as well. We've known it for the work it's done in the pediatric setting, but how that educational component works for providing the next generation of future pediatricians. And we look at that and also our commitment towards other clinical internships and educational opportunities across the organization. And so looking at that specifically within IT, we wanted to think about how can we provide that same level of commitment to our values, but then also looking at what are some of the current state needs. And that's where we look at diversity in the instance of not only just culture, but then also as well as thinking about perspectives as well. Within our IT career pathways, we like to think about perspectives on veterans. We like to think about perspectives on culture and race and ethnicity and gender, in the sense of how can all of these different diverse backgrounds and thinking about the communities that we serve, how can we align that the IT department that's supporting that infrastructure is reflective of not only the patient population, but the communities within that are populations as well. And so then looking at that perspective of presenting those educational opportunities within our workforce and providing that bilateral mentorship experience, in the sense where mentors are not only the ones providing the guidance, but then also learning as well. I know that even in my own experience and working with some of our previous interns, it's always been very interesting, the things that I learn every single day. And so looking at that, the next thing that I would like to share with you all is a few of the programs that we've been working on and some of the progress that we've made over the past, I would say, 2 to 3 years. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so for this particular slide, what I really like about it is it really captures the various different programs that we have across the IT career pathways. For example, the Year Up internship and the maturity level that we have with that particular program, where we've been working with the Year Up organization for about 10 plus years, and we've seen opportunities where interns have come into the organization and grown into their own careers. And then also where previous or past Year Up interns have shared with future Year Up interns about their experiences working at Children's, which has allowed us to be able to develop and improve on our internship opportunity. And then looking at where we'll be focusing a little bit today as far as the Seattle College's healthcare IT program. You'll notice there where I have that as a little bit of a ceiling as opposed to planting the seeds. And I believe this next slide will demonstrate a little bit why. So to kind of piggyback on what Anna and Shauna were saying a little bit earlier, in the sense of this has been something that we've been working on for the past couple of years. I believe it started around in like 2018, where we had this opportunity of, I would say, serendipity, where it was the beginning of the IT career pathways. And we were thinking about how can we engage more with the community. And Seattle Colleges reached out to us about collaborating and developing this applied bachelor's degree in health information technology. And so over the course of 2019, we spent that time getting input from IT leaders to develop a draft in that the current courses, but then also reflect a little bit more about what are going to be those future needs for our patients and families and our future workforce. And so what we were able to combine was a great repertoire of not only current courses and curriculums, but then also what will be that future state for the next generation of healthcare IT professionals. And then, of course, as we all know, in 2020, that gave us a time to put things on pause, but then also gave us the opportunity to reflect once again and refocus towards building this healthcare IT pathway from that micro-credential perspective. And so over the past few months, that's where Seattle Colleges and Children's has been partnering together and developing that program. And so wanted to share a little bit about how children sees this pathway from this perspective of within healthcare IT and some of the other programs that we have. So when we look at this micro pathway or micro credentialing pathway, and we think about the various individuals that can be within that healthcare career pathway, we think about our Year Up interns. We think of opportunity youth, which is anyone between the ages of 18 to 24 that may not have a job or may not have decided for where they would like to focus their career. Or as Anna was mentioning earlier, an adult learner for someone who may be making a transition into their career. And so thinking about all these different opportunities of where this fits into our pathway, I see it as really and truthfully that direct connection in line where it can be that next level for a Year Up intern or alum to go for that micro pathway, or one of our community individuals from our primary care site of Odessa Brown, or an individual that may be from Everett, or maybe from another partnership that we may have that can come in from a high school graduate, or maybe even one of our future staff members or current staff members and going into this. And with that, thinking about the roles, I see you, Shauna, tapping on it. Yes, Mel. And so thinking about those potential roles and pathways and how that fits in, we see this kind of fitting into three type of roles, if you will, from our clinical service desk for an individual who may potentially have clinical experience in providing that EHR or MER specific calls, or for someone that may be a little bit more technical and would like to have that kind of hands-on experience of at the elbow support and being on site through a desktop technician, or someone who might have more of the technical components from an applications component and wants to focus more so on the software as opposed to hardware, and looking at opportunities within that clinical applications analyst role as well. And so ultimately seeing this pathway as and this micro credential to create an opportunity for really a lot of different types of individuals, no matter their place in their pathway, and no matter their personal desires of where they would see themselves as a best fit. And so, oh, go ahead, Shauna.
Awesome. Thank you, Melvin. Yeah, I just wanted to take a minute to thank Anna and Melvin for sharing all this today, and just to say that I think the reason for putting this Lunch and Learn together was really to provide an opportunity to share. This has been very much work in progress, kind of up to the minute to this presentation, and wanting to make sure that this is information that is shared widely with our healthcare organization peers, because you may see this micro-credential program as a source of talent potentially. If there are entry-level IT roles that you are hiring for or anticipate you'll be hiring for, you might see yourselves as consumers of the graduates of this micro-credential program. And because there might be incumbents who are in your organizations now for whom this might be a starting point to transition into a different role that might be in high demand in your organization. So really wanting to make sure this information is out in front of people so that employer members of HILT have a chance to reflect on whether this might be something that is a place where you might want to plug in. And then also, I think because the support partners that are so critical to the success of HILT are also a really important avenue for connecting with members of our community, whether that might be young people or adult learners who might be, both interested in pursuing a pathway in health IT, and who might really benefit from the stair-step model that's being created here in terms of the micro-credentials and entry point and the ability to then articulate to that associate's level and then to the baccalaureate level. So that's really the purpose for coming today to spend a little time talking about this. And then of course, just an opportunity to answer questions that people might have. And I think there are different ways, different levels of involvement that people could have. You might come away from this saying, this is really exciting. Please send me a flyer and I will pass that on to incumbents in my organization or with people that my employment case managers work with. Or you might say, I've got some people that I'd really like to connect with this opportunity and that I want to support in being successful in this opportunity. And so I will also share that Children's is in the process of putting together some type of scholarship that will allow us to support some of the students in this program with the expectation that there will be likely some folks from inside our organization that might be candidates and that we would be looking to hire some number of folks coming out of this program. Clearly, I don't think the volume anywhere is such that somebody might need the graduates of an entire cohort at one time, but I think collectively as an industry, this is clearly a high need for all of us. We are all competing with the IT industry generally that is quite large and quite a presence here in the Northwest. So that's just a little bit about planting some seeds for how you might want to get involved, and then I think just wanting to turn it over to the group for any questions that folks might have, or comments or observations or thoughts that might be generated by this.
Yeah, great. Let's give a virtual round of applause for our presenters today. So Shauna, Anna, and Melvin, thank you so much for being able to join us and share on this exciting pathway. This is, to think about all the amazing pathways being built out in the midst of all the work that's being done with COVID. It's great to see this type of work there. If folks have questions, if you all just want to type those in the chat, I am happy to play a little bit of air traffic controller. And I see a first question from Shireen, which we must have had the same cup of coffee, because I was exactly thinking this same question as well. What are the starting salaries for the position? So Melvin, that may go to you or to Shauna.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good question. So I believe, and Anna, please remind me if I'm incorrect, but I think the starting salary that we were looking at for individuals that would receive this micro-credential would be around $67,000. And so looking at the roles that we have outlined within the slide deck, I believe that typically your average desktop technician will make around $72,000 or more, and that's including benefits.
Great. Excellent, excellent. Yes, full-time benefited positions with upward mobility. That's great.
Right.
Anna, just a quick question. Since you built this pathway into the degree, individuals that are eligible for college, Washington College Grant or Pell Grant would be able to use those financial aid structures to pay for the cost of the training, correct?
That's exactly right. Yes. It's a beautiful thing of designing pathways that way. They get access to the financial aid because they're technically on a longer a longer pathway. So
Yeah.
yes.
Great. I have a question from Josue. Are there requirements for ESL levels? So what is the the ESL level requirement to begin the pathway?
It's an interesting question. I don't believe we've discussed this, but I kind of refer to Anna in reference to some of the other programs that
Yeah.
they've had partnerships with. Like, how has some of this been approached? Because this is really interesting.
Yeah, it is a really good question. And I think I'm on the hook to provide an answer. And I haven't been able to dig into it yet. I know I see Barry on the call and I see Chris, I think, was on here. Do either of you want to weigh in as to kind of what's typical?
Typically what we end up doing is we stick the IBEST portions in the beginning of the courses and we'll say the 101s, 102 areas as supporting pieces. And then we build off of that so that we get them up to speed and they're ready to go. Is that a little bit helpful, Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, so Barry, so is there an IBEST on-ramp into this pathway, or is that something that'll be built out a little bit later on?
We can actually build that in a little bit later on. Right now, like Mr. Melvin was saying, we didn't discuss that fully yet.
Okay.
But with some of our other programs, we've actually built it in as necessary.
Okay, great.
So at Renton Tech, what we're doing, we actually have a bridge to allied health and a bridge to IT. And so basically the components within IBEST are within those programs. What we try to do is create something where students feel comfortable being in courses, but also give students choices in terms of what they really want out of their careers. But it's a precursor to the actual major as well. They learn study skills, life skills, resume writing, things of that nature to get them ready for the actual major. So that's what we do there.
Great. And for those of our friends that may not know what IBEST is is Integrated Basic Education and Skills Training. And rather than the old model of individuals that might maybe have are new Americans and have come to join our community that are still building up some English language skills, or individuals that maybe did not complete their high school credential, are able to actually start at college level curriculum and simultaneously learn literacy, numeracy, and digital skills while they're able to, so not having to go study English for a year before you can actually learn what you're trying to go to the college to do, but try to accelerate that pathway. And we definitely know that in our community that our immigrant refugee communities have been some of the hardest hit by unemployment, and long-term unemployment in particular. So thank you, Josue, for elevating that question. And another question, how are we ensuring the students are college ready? And is there a, so I think that kind of dovetails off of that from James, is there a college success class or any other support classes for particularly our adult learners that might be really nervous about jumping back into the college classroom?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm taking away from these questions that we need to be a little more intentional around some of these on-ramps. So thank you for that. I will say we have designed this pathway to act as kind of the first year of the associate's degree. So there's, you know, all your gen eds and your content area requirements. So, you know, the Seattle Central, where this will be offered, we have our developmental education pathway for those students who aren't quite ready for college level math and English. We also have IBEST options, which, as Dr. Robinson mentioned, we would need to integrate into this model. And then we do offer college success courses that kind of like College 101. So we do have those. We're not as of yet requiring that of students. So we know some students need it, some students don't. So we're kind of we have that as an option for students, and there is always the option to develop a shorter online competency-based version of that. So students can kind of ramp up as slowly or incrementally as they need to. Yeah.
Yeah, and Anna, if I can add, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of the strategy around wanting to share broadly that this is coming is to really get the word out, because I think the design of having kind of successive starts for cohorts throughout the year is such that if someone connects early and is interested and is a good fit, but needs a little bit more readiness before they're going to feel really confident about jumping into the content in the micro credential, there's the ability sort of to plug people into the right place. And so if fall quarter is not the spot where they're ready, that you could help get somebody in the right space they need to be so that they could subsequently enter in winter or spring. And so that's kind of the intention here. Obviously with something new, the timing doesn't always work out that you catch people at the right time, but I think that is part of the intention behind having these successive starts kind of throughout the year as this new micro-credential is brought online.
Great, excellent. I see a comment in the chat from Dan sharing that that there is widespread industry demand for this credential, and suggested potentially connecting with HIMSS, or the Healthcare Information and Management Systems. Dan, help me out with the last S.
Society.
Society. Okay.
I was going to say that. Anna, come on.
I feel like we're on an
episode.
It's like an episode of Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, right? So good deal. And Consuelo adding into the chat is sort of that the Port of Seattle has previously partnered with South Seattle colleges and port jobs in implementing an intro to aviation maintenance technician, another high demand job, particularly as we come back and all of us want to get back on airplanes and head out to Hawaii and various vacation destinations. Dan, anything you wanted to add on your comment?
Met with Melvin and the executive director from HIMSS just before COVID actually shut us down. And so lots of great conversation. They have a lot of interest in borrowing or stealing or Seattle children sharing this model. Yeah, they just like to see this across multiple healthcare industry partners, as well as their IT partners. Yeah, lots of interest.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. Thanks, Dan.
And we have had a handful of really great conversations with Dwayne, who is the current president of the Washington chapter of HIMSS. They're even providing, it's a relatively small scholarship, but they'll pay a portion of tuition for a student who is also a parent to help with childcare costs and things like that. So HIMSS has been a great partner so far, and hopefully into the future.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, excellent. We are at 1:15, and we'll be happy to give some time back to folks, but do want to do a last call for any questions for any of our panelists. I think this has been incredibly helpful. And again, I think the purpose of putting this on folks' radars, and whether folks are going to be jumping in right in the fall or whether we're teeing up a pipeline for folks, I think the goal is to make this an ongoing and sustainable program so that we have a steady, diverse, and inclusive pipeline in our information technology professionals to serve our healthcare sector. So hey, Dan, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, just to tag on what Anna just said in terms of the scholarship. So I've been on the scholarship committee actually for probably the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And when I first started, it was really focused on really graduate degrees. And so we've expanded it both in terms of career and technical education as well as geographically to across the whole state. So not just King County. I know this group is focused on King County, but you know, of course, my interests are the whole state. And so a lot of community college students are actually getting those scholarships now. So it's really important for us to just keep building awareness around those opportunities.
Great. Excellent. Always good news when we have scholarships for our aspiring students. So wonderful. All right. Well, again, a virtual round of applause or some snaps for our presenters, Shauna, Melvin, and Anna. And thanks for everybody that asked some of the awesome questions. And we look forward to seeing you at a HILT event on your calendar here shortly. Thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of your lunch and a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Good day.
Thanks, everyone.